Coming up on Network Africa, President Muhammadu Buhari meets with U.S. President Donald Trump. Gangs in South Africa go on rampage, setting fire on at least 18 trucks in the eastern province of KwaZulu-Natal. And former Liberian President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf received the Mo Ibrahim Award for Excellence in African Leadership. Hello and welcome to the program. I am BC Adebayo. President Muhammadu Buhari will any moment from now meet with the United States President Donald Trump at the White House in Washington, D.C. The meeting between the two presidents is expected to focus on mostly security, especially the ongoing fight against terrorism, the economy, and the upcoming elections in Nigeria. President Buhari's spokesman, Mr. Garba Shehu, says in a statement, quote, "It's important to know that beyond the symbolism of the visit, there are important matters affecting both countries that will be placed on the table when the two presidents meet. We have the understanding that the two delegations have their agenda clearly spelled out, and there will be interest and focus on the matter of security and safety, focus on trade and investment, and focus on democratic development in our country." End of quote. Mr. Shehu noted that Nigeria had not previously received the desired cooperation from the U.S. in the fight against terror, especially during the Obama administration. President Buhari's visit comes after Mr. Trump met German Chancellor Angela Merkel on Friday and French President Emmanuel Macron last week to discuss the contentious Iran nuclear deal and biting trade sanctions. Joining us now is an international political commentator, Calvin Dark from Washington, D.C. Well, many thanks for joining us.
Happy to be here.
What impact do you think President Buhari's meeting with the U.S. President Donald Trump will have on Nigeria and Africa as a whole?
I think the visit is very important for Nigeria and Africa because Americans need to be reminded and educated more of just how significant economically and security-wise Nigeria is and all of the countries in the region on the continent. So in that sense, it's very important. Now, I do think that the success of the meeting, regardless of what is actually talked about, will depend on the personal relationship that President Buhari can establish with President Trump. Because we know that President Trump is an effective partner with world leaders that he believes like him, respect him, and admire him. So if President Buhari can put on the charm, it'll be an even more important visit.
Now, both leaders are expected to discuss shared economic and security interests. What other issues should be up for discussion?
Well, there are several other issues that should be up for discussion, but I don't believe will be. Namely among those is human rights. As I'm sure you're familiar, the U.S. State Department put out a human rights report recently that made a lot of serious allegations and raised a lot of serious issues. However, President Trump is not going to raise these human rights issues because his administration has made clear that when we deal with our international partners, the focus is economic growth and security cooperation, and that prioritizes over consolidation of democracy and protection of human rights.
Now, this is the second time President Trump is meeting an African leader. He met with the Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi last year. But do you think that this will be able to change the narrative that Trump is racist?
I don't think one meeting will be able to do that because after the derogatory comments and then after the sudden firing of former Secretary Rex Tillerson after the abbreviated Africa visit, one meeting won't do it. However, if Trump says the right things and promises the right things, that'll put it on a better path. However, it remains to be seen what he tweets, does, or says in the weeks and months after the visit.
Well, what are some of the right things that you expect President Trump to say?
Well, I think that he will emphasize Nigeria's economic importance. I think, and remember, whenever President Trump emphasizes something, it's in the context of what he's done well. So he will talk about how he's improved the U.S. economy and wants to open it up for Nigeria. When they talk about terrorism, He's going to refer to how he has made strides with ISIS and other terrorist groups, and how that can also happen in Nigeria with increased U.S. cooperation.
Well, at the end of the day, what do you hope that the meeting would achieve?
What I hope the meeting will achieve is that there are really serious ways that go beyond President Trump and President Buhari that could bring progress to the American people and the Nigerian people economically and keep us safer. However, what I most hope is that President Buhari can put on the charm, establish a friendship with President Trump, because that will be the key to really good bilateral relations. And what I'm looking forward to is in about 2 hours, they're having a joint press conference. And I don't know what's going to happen, but press conferences with President Trump are never boring.
Well, we'll see how interesting this press conference will be. Many thanks for joining us, international political commentator Calvin Dog.
Thank you.
Ethiopia's former prime minister is asking for leaders in South Sudan to resign for the sake of peace because of their failure to resolve the country's crisis. According to a Paris-based newspaper, Hilmarian Desalegn made his remarks at a conference in Rwanda organized by the Mo Ibrahim Foundation over the weekend. Mr. Desalegn, who resigned in February amid unrest in his country, discussed his role in the regional effort to bring peace to South Sudan, which descended into civil war in 2013 when President Salva Kiir fell out with his deputy Riek Machar. He further said that leaders have to come to their senses and leave office so they give power to new young leadership that can continue to the next step. The National Assembly in the Republic of Chad is due to vote on a controversial change to its constitution. The proposal is to increase the presidential terms to 6 years with a limit of 2 terms, as the current mandate is 5 years with no limits on re-election. The 2-term limit would be effective from the next presidential election in 2021. That would mean President Idris Deby could stay in power until 2033, when he will be 81. The amendment, which was approved by the government earlier this month, must be passed by 3/5 of those in Parliament.